In this video, we're going to talk about queue implementations in Java. So if we type queue here, look at this green icon. This indicates that this type is an interface. It's not a class. So we cannot instantiate it. We cannot new that up. Let me show you. So if we type queue of integer and try to instantiate it using the new operator, let's see what happens. IntelliJ automatically generates all this code, which is basically an anonymous class implementation. Now, if all this sounds confusing, don't worry. All you need to understand is that interfaces don't have code like classes, so we cannot instantiate them. Now, there is so much we can talk about when it comes to interfaces. That's why I've dedicated an entire section in the second part of my Ultimate Java series. So if you don't have a good and in-depth understanding of interfaces, I highly encourage you to take that course. Because interfaces are very powerful, and yet a lot of people don't really understand them properly because there's a lot of bad and misleading information out there. Now, very briefly, interfaces are contracts. So this queue interface in Java declares a contract, which means it declares the list of methods that queue implementations should provide. It says, hey, anyone who wants to implement a queue should have these methods. Let's have a quick look at these methods. So if we search for Java queue, we can find the documentation for this interface. As you can see, queue is an interface. And over here, you can see the classes that implement this interface. So there are so many different implementations here. Which one you choose depends on your performance and concurrency requirements. But out of all these implementations, the two implementations that you would use 90% of the time are ArrayDeque and linked list. Isn't that interesting? So the linked list class in Java implements the queue interface, which means we can use it like a queue. But what is this ArrayDeque? Well, deque is short for double-ended queue. That is a queue that has two ends. We can add items from any direction, from left or from right, from front or from back. All you need to understand here is that internally this class uses a resizable array to store the items. Later in this section, you are going to implement a similar class from scratch. So you will understand exactly how this class works internally. But now let's have a quick look at the methods that this interface or contract declares. So if you scroll down, under method summary, you can see all these methods. We have add and offer. These are similar methods, and they're both like enqueue that we talked about in the previous video. So enqueue is the name of the operation in computer science, but in Java, this operation is implemented as add and offer. The difference is that if the queue gets full, add will throw an exception, but offer will not. It simply offers a new value to the queue. The queue may not accept it. Now you might say, but Mosh, you just told us that this ArrayDeque is a resizable array. That is true, but not all these implementations are resizable. Some of them have a limit, so the queue can get full. Similar to add and offer, we have poll and remove. The difference is that if our queue is empty, remove will throw an exception, but poll will return null. Okay? And we have peek and element. These are similar methods. If our queue is empty, peek will return null, but element will throw an exception. So these are all the methods that the queue interface declares. All the implementations that you see here implement these methods. Now let's have a quick look at the ArrayDeque class. So back to our code. So the type of our variable is a queue of integer. We're programming against this interface. Let's call this queue. And now we're going to set this to an instance of the ArrayDeque class. So this is the interface or the contract, and this is the implementation. Now look at the methods. Queue dot. So we have remove, add, element, offer, peek, and poll. Let's add a few items here like 10, 20, and 30, and then print the queue. Just like before, it looks like an array, but this behaves like a queue. So here's the front of the queue, and here is the back or the rear. As we add new items, they join the back of the queue, and as we remove them, they get removed from the front. Let me show you. So let's remove the item at the front. Queue.remove. This returns the item at the front. We can store it in this variable and then print it on the console. So 10 is removed And now our queue has only 2 items. So this is how queues work. Next, we're going to look at a popular interview question around queues.